Good morning, dear students. Here is discussion and explanation of the mid-year revision questions that were streamed on Teams last week. Let's begin with novel, A Tale of Two Cities. Question number 1. Dickens' choice of the broken barrel scene was a perfect one as a preparatory scene for the revolution. Explain. The broken barrel scene was a very special one, and it was a good choice because it contained a lot of meaningful facts that were conveyed to us in a wonderful way. As you see, the broken barrel scene was full of a lot of features of symbolism and foreshadowing that showed the miserable life that the poor led and their suffering, their extreme hunger, starvation, the oppression they suffered, okay, before the breaking out of the revolution. And this, of course, was because of the nobles and the king, okay. This scene prepares for the breaking out of the revolution. It shows how miserable the people were, and it shows how angry they were. It also foreshadows the breaking out of the revolution and that bloodshed that would take place as a lot of the nobles would be killed, the king would be killed. The features of foreshadowing symbolism are discussed clearly in a perfect style in the context. Using the red color for the blood, the way the blood was spread everywhere, the wine was spread everywhere, the word blood written in capitals, okay. So the red color symbolizes the blood of the nobles and the king that would be shed after the breaking out of the revolution. The way the wine was spread, okay, the desperate desire of the poor to taste the wine reflected their hunger, misery, and their blood, the blood that would be shed after the breaking of the revolution, and the poor hunger, as well as the being fierce and violent after the breaking out of the revolution. Okay. The word blood that was written by Gaspard on the wall, written in capitals to show how angry the people were, and to show the breaking out of the revolution and the bloodshed that would take place, the common feature of the revolution, which would be death. Even the shiny weapons showed that people were very angry and ready, and the breaking out of the revolution. So it's considered one of the most suitable scenes as the beginning of the novel and as a preparatory one for the breaking out of the revolution. You have the answer. What is important when you give the answer to a question in novel is the information. It's not how many lines you write, the information. What do you talk about? You have to be precise and give the right information that the question asks for. We would say that the best answer is the broken barrel scene foreshadows the breaking out of the French Revolution through the red wine that stood for the noble's bloodshed. It also symbolizes the death of the noble through the red wine and the word blood written by Gaspard on the wall. The people's desperate desire to taste the wine stood for their misery and poverty, as well as their bloodthirst. Of course, after the breaking out of the revolution, poverty and hunger that the poor suffered were two of the main reasons for the breaking out of the revolution. The shiny weapons and the capitals in the word blood indicate the anger that filled the hearts of the poor towards the king and the nobles. Number 2, quotation, comment. And at last, it's a question. And at last, the victim would be able to live peacefully. Discuss the statement referring to Dr. Manet's story. It's a question, it's not a quotation. And the victim is Dr. Manet. He was the victim of oppression, injustice, and absolute power of the king and the nobles. He was kept in prison for more than 18 years. This long years of imprisonment and suffering affected his mental health. He was physically and mentally affected, badly affected. Okay? He was prisoned for no sin or guilt and with no trial. Finally, he would find peace as his daughter Lucy Manet and his loyal friend Mr. Lorry would accompany him back to London, and he would live there peacefully. Here we have the answer. On hearing the news about the release of Dr. Manet, who was imprisoned in the Bastille for a long time for no sin and with no trial, Lucy Manet and Mr. Lorry arrived in Paris to accompany the old doctor, Dr. Manet of course, that was physically and mentally affected by the long years of suffering to London, where his misery and suffering would come to an end, and he would live peacefully in the care of his loving daughter and his loyal friend. Question 3. Donnys Trial in London revealed a lot of facts about more than one person. Illustrate. طبعا the main characters that we learned a lot of facts about them were Burstead, Roger Clive, Carton himself, Lucy and her feelings towards Darnay and his care about Lucy. Okay, so the first person to talk about was John Burstead, or Burstead. He was proved to be a dishonest person who could be paid to testify against Darnay. Roger Clive, who was proved to be a thief, and he could surely be paid to testify against Darnay. It also shows that Lucy was in love with Darnay and cared about him, and it shows that Darnay cared about her because he was in love with her. It showed how clever and professional Sidney Carton was, because he managed to prove Darnay's innocence by the note he sent to Mr. Stryver. And the similarity between him and Darnay served and helped in proving Darnay's innocence. So the best answer would be Donnys Trial in England revealed the truth about Burstead, who was proved to be dishonest, and Roger Clive, who was proved to be a thief. It also showed that both Lucy and Darnay were in love. The details of the trial, as well as Darnay's final innocence, proved Carton's professionalism as a lawyer. Keen eye, he was a good observer of the details, strong powers of mind, and the strange likeness between him and Darnay. Question 4. Despite their likeness, both Carton and Darnay were completely different. Explain. The difference is that Charles Darnay was a successful man. He led a successful life in England as a French teacher, a teacher of the French language and literature. He was rich, and he was in love with Lucy. Their love was mutual, which means exchanged between them. He was a successful person, and he could make his name in life. On the other hand, Sidney Carton was a man who had the wonderful powers of mind, who was a very clever and a professional lawyer, but unfortunately, he didn't use those powers of mind for the good of himself. He used them for the good of others, just like Mr. Stryver. This is why he was a failure. He couldn't make his name in life, and he didn't have the motivation, or he didn't have the ability to start or have a new start once more. This is why he was a failure. And this fact made him know that his love to Lucy Manette was impossible, although it was real. So the suitable answer would be, despite being similar in appearance, Carton and Darnay were totally different. Since Darnay was a rich and successful French teacher in England who was in mutual love with Lucy Manette. On the other hand, Carton had strong powers of mind, but he didn't use them for his own good. Despite his professionalism and cleverness, he was a failure who could never prove himself or win Lucy's heart, and who believed that he was of no good to the world and the world was of no good to him. For these reasons, he disliked Darnay. Question 5. Arrogance and oppression killed innocence. Discuss. If we refer back to the events of A Tale of Two Cities, we would certainly be talking about Gaspard's son's death and the awful incident in which the Marquis's carriage passed over the little body of Gaspard's son and caused his death. Arrogance and oppression were clear in the Marquis's reaction, who cared about the safety of his horses and didn't care about the life of the little child. He threw a gold coin to the father, to Gaspard, as if he was just paying for something that he had broken. Not only this, but he also accused the poor of being careless about the lives of their children. And this shows the general attitude of the nobles towards the poor, and that they consider them inferior to them, not more than animals. So the perfect answer would be, Gaspard's son was killed under the Marquis's wheels. The Marquis cared only for the safety of his horses and blamed the poor for not taking care of their children. And he threw a gold coin to Gaspard, as if he had broken something and was paying for it. This proved that the lives of the poor were of no importance for the nobles, who considered them not more than brats. Quotations. Number 1. In this beautiful world, such things are possible. They are actually done every day, such in the state of France. These words were said by Monsieur Devarge to Mr. Lorry. Mr. Lorry was surprised as he learned that Monsieur Devarge locked Dr. Manette in the room. But Monsieur Devarge justified what he did, saying that Dr. Manette had been locked for a long time in a cell in the Bastille, and he would feel that it's safer for him if he was locked in the room. Mr. Lorry was surprised. He couldn't believe that such things would happen in the world. But Monsieur Devarge assured that this happened in France. He was referring back to the oppression and the injustice that that characterized the French society before the breaking out of the revolution because of the nobles and the king. Number 2. Who are you? Are you the prison guard's daughter? These words were said by Dr. Manette when he saw Lucy Manette, his daughter, because of his state of mind that was affected badly by his long years of imprisonment. He couldn't recognize her. He thought she was the daughter of the guard that used to guard him in his cell. But Lucy comforted him, and she told him that his suffering has come to an end, and she told him that he would know who she was later on. When he noticed the similarity between her hair and the hairs he had for the long years, and the similarity between her voice and his wife's voice, he started to realize a lot of things about the similarity. Lucy Manette told him that his suffering was over, and all the fear that filled her heart towards her father turned into love and care. And this was a turning point in the doctor's life, since he would receive care and love by his daughter and his loyal friend in London. 3. If a man so like the prisoner could be found by chance in this court, another man just as like him might chance to be in that hotel. These words were said by Mr. Stryver during Donnys Trial in London. He said these words after he received Carton's note. He said so after he heard the sixth witness's testimony, in which he said that he saw a man similar to Darnay in a city where there was a shipyard and a soldier's camp. Okay? Using Carton's intelligent note and similarity between Carton and Darnay, Mr. Stryver could prove that the person the sixth witness had seen could be another person so similar to Darnay the same way Carton was similar to him. And this was one of the main reasons for proving Darnay's innocence. Number 4. You surprised me. I thought at that time that you were attracted to her. You were very quick to see what happened to her. Mr. Stryver said these words to Sidney Carton as they were preparing their files in Sidney Carton's office. Mr. Stryver's intentions were not good. He started to talk about Lucy Manette as she fainted because he knew that Carton was in love with her. He also talked about Sidney Carton's failure and said that it was his fault. Sidney Carton, in a trial to prove that he didn't care about Lucy Manette, said that she was not that much pretty. Okay, but in fact he couldn't deny it. And Mr. Stryver meant to hurt him, talking about his hopeless love and his failure. Number 5. Monsieur, I was looking at the man. There was a man under the carriage. He was hanging on by the chain. The roadmender said that to the Marquise down the hill, when the carriage arrived in the village down the hill. The Marquise had noticed that the roadmender was staring or looking carefully at his carriage as they passed by him up the hill. When they got down in the village, he stopped the roadmender and asked them. The roadmender said that there was a tall man who was hanging on by the chain to the carriage, and he was tall and covered in dust. And he disappeared once the carriage went down the hill. Nobody recognized the man. Okay, the man was gasped. Okay, and this was the justification the roadmender gave to the Marquise as he asked him about staring at his carriage. Now let's move on to the grammar revision. We'll have a little discussion about the answers here. You write using the words between brackets, and we have to care that we shouldn't change the meaning. You had better see your dentist to get rid of this terrible toothache. The 3 main ways to give advice are: you had better, should or shouldn't, or I advise you. Okay, so it would be: you should see your dentist to get rid of this terrible toothache. Number 2, I'm sure Fred is not at home. If I am sure that he is not at home, I should use can't. Fred can't be at home because I'm sure about it. 3, Joe didn't repair the car yesterday. Repaired. You were given the past participle, and this means that you should change the sentence into passive, a negative passive. Past simple, that tense is the past simple, so you have to change it into the past simple passive. Begin with the object. So the car was not repaired by Joe yesterday, or yesterday by Joe, both are right. Number 4, Our letters are delivered by a young postman early every morning. The sentence begins with the object, the noun that receives the action. This means that this is the passive sentence. We are asked to begin with the doer of the action, the subject, a young postman. This means that we have to change the sentence from passive into active. The answer would be a young postman delivers our letters early every morning. Number 5. I am not certain if Jackie is rich. I'm not certain means I'm not sure. And if you are not sure about the action or the fact, you should use might as a modal verb. You are given be between brackets, so the sentence would be Jackie might be rich. I'm not certain, I'm not sure. Might. 6. They are streaming the new material nowadays. Nowadays is one of the keywords or time expressions used with the present continuous tense. We have to replace it with regularly. And regularly is one of the time expressions used with the present simple. You're right. And it could be considered one of the adverbs of frequency. So we have to change the tense of the sentence into the present simple. They stream the new material regularly. Number 7. While they were celebrating their graduation, they received their certificates. Use during. Let me remind you with the rule. During must be followed by either a noun or a gerund. And the gerund form means verb plus ing, giving the meaning of a noun. The other part of the sentence should have a verb in the past tense. So we should replace while with during. Cross out while they were and add during. The answer would be during celebrating their graduation or during their graduation they received the certificates. Number 8. The government has worked on improving health services for a decade. Dedicate, the word decade means 10 years. So we have to cross out for and use since instead. Always remember that for is followed by a period of time, while since is followed by a specific point of time or starting a situation starting from which the action is taking place, or if the situation contains a verb, it should be in the past simple tense. So before for, we have a verb in the present perfect tense. After for, we have a period of time. Before since, we have a verb in the present perfect tense. And after since, we have a specific point of time or a situation. And if it includes a verb, it should be in the past simple tense. So the answer would be the government has worked on improving health services since, and you have to calculate, since 2011. 9. Of course, Omar used to have a hobby when he was young. Used it. And you have a capital D. This means that we have to ask a question. Remember that of course means yes. And remember that you have used to, talking about a past habit that doesn't happen anymore. The question would be, did Omar used to have a hobby when he was young? And the last one is, they thought he was a liar. Use now. You're going to change the tense from past simple into present continuous because you have now. But always bear in mind that think is a stative non-continuous verb when it means believe. So, they thought means they believed. In this case, think is a stative verb. So we should keep it in the simple form even if we have now. The answer would be, they think he is a liar now. Let's move on to aim high. Number one, choose. Number one, the online sessions have become time-consuming, extremely hand-in, and indispensable method of teaching nowadays. Of course, we would choose indispensable because it means very important and necessary, and this is the convenient meaning. Number two, the ongoing discovery of COVID-19's treatment will browse, log, back up, revolutionize the medical research around the world. Of course, the good choice or the right choice would be revolutionize because it means it will change it completely. Okay? Number three, tell me on which workout criteria blog archive should I follow to be able to judge this short story competition. Tell me on which criteria should I follow? On which criteria should I follow? Number four, the Ultra Bio Proto Inter Samsung Note 20 is too expensive because of its various options. The Ultra because it's light. Number five, you should download the application that automatically back up and then carry out switch off your files and sheets. Automatically what? Backup. B. Rewrite the sentences using your word list without changing the meaning. It was not a good idea to read that story. I found it dull, normal, and traditional. I found it dull and conventional. Number two. Mom doesn't want to buy a smartwatch. She is afraid of technology. She has technophobia. You have to change the sentence in order to use the right word in the right way. 3. I would like to join and become a member of UNICEF organization. I'd like to enroll UNICEF organization. Number 4. The CIB sent me my credit card without any monthly charges or payment. Monthly charges or payment would be replaced with fees. 5. We are moving to a new house next weekend. We're moving to a new house next weekend. We shouldn't put all those pieces of furniture into that small house. We don't have enough space. Putting all pieces of furniture into that small house means cramming them. So it would be, we shouldn't cram. Okay. Thank you guys. Hope you got a lot of benefits from this discussion and explanation. Wish you best of luck.